The moment I asked that quiet stranger in the corner to dance with me, I had no idea I was about to change my entire life. One dance, that's all it took. But what happened after, nobody could have predicted. Not even me. This is the story of how a single moment of courage led me to discover that the man in the worn-out jacket, sitting alone in that dimly lit community center, wasn't just anyone. He was him. And by the time I found out the truth, it was already too late to guard my heart. My name is Emma Collins, and if there's one thing I've learned in my 26 years of life, it's that hope doesn't pay the bills. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror that Friday evening, trying to convince myself that the reflection staring back at me looked confident, capable, like someone who had her life together. The truth, I was drowning. My fingers fumbled with the zipper of my only decent dresser navy blue number I'd found at a thrift store 3 years ago. It still fit, thank God, though the fabric had thinned at the seams. I told myself it didn't matter. Nobody would look that closely anyway. Emma, are you ready yet? Sarah's voice carried through my tiny apartment, accompanied by the sound of her heels clicking against my worn linoleum floor. Sarah Chen had been my best friend since college. She was everything I wasn't: confident, put together, and most importantly, implied at a job that actually paid a living wage. I worked 3 part-time jobs just to keep the lights on: morning shifts at a coffee shop, afternoon tutoring sessions with high school kids, and weekend gigs as a freelance graphic designer. The graphic design was supposed to be my career, my passion. Instead, it had become another source of stress, another reminder that my art degree had amounted to exactly what my father had predicted: nothing. Almost. I called back, swiping on some mascara. The tube was nearly empty, and I had to pump it several times to get any product out. Sarah appeared in the doorway, looking stunning in a red cocktail dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant bun, and diamond studs glittered in her ears, a gift from her boyfriend, Marcus, who worked in finance. "You look beautiful," she said. But I caught the sympathy in her eyes as she took in my appearance. I forced a smile. "Thanks, you too, Emma." She hesitated. "You know you don't have to come tonight if you're not feeling up to it. The community center fundraiser isn't exactly glamorous." "Are you kidding? Free food and music." "I'm there." I tried to keep my tone light, but we both knew the real reason I'd agreed to come. The event was free, and it got me out of my apartment for a few hours away from the stack of bills on my kitchen table and the rejection emails filling my inbox. Sarah's expression softened. "Have you heard back from that design firm yet?" My stomach clenched. "They went with someone else. More experience, apparently." "I'm so sorry." "It's fine." I cut her off, grabbing my worn crossbody bag with a broken strap I'd safety pinned back together. "Really? I'm used to it by now. Come on, let's go before I change my mind and spend the evening eating ramen in my pajamas." Sarah didn't push, which was one of the many reasons I loved her. She just linked her arm through mine and guided me out the door. The Riverside Community Center was exactly as advertised. A modest venue decorated with string lights and paper lanterns, filled with folding tables covered in white tablecloths that had seen better days. A local band played soft jazz in the corner, and the air smelled like cheap punch and grocery store cookies. It was perfect. No pretense, no pressure, just regular people trying to support a good cause. "This is nice," I said, and I meant it. Sarah squeezed my hand. "See, I told you it would be good to get out." We made our way to the refreshment table, where I loaded a small plate with cheese cubes and crackers. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, and even this modest spread looked like a feast. "Sarah, over here." Marcus waved from across the room, surrounded by a group of his coworkers. They all looked successful, the kind of people who belonged in places much fancier than this. "I'll be right back," Sarah said, already moving toward him. "Mingle a little, okay? Who knows? Maybe you'll meet someone interesting." I watched her go, suddenly feeling very alone in the crowded room. This was the problem with being the struggling friend in a group of successful people. They never meant to make you feel less than, But somehow, you always did. I took my plate and found a quiet corner near the windows, content to people watch. The band had transitioned to a slower song, and couples were beginning to fill the makeshift dance floor. They swayed together, lost in their own little worlds. A familiar ache settled in my chest. When was the last time someone had held me like that? When was the last time I'd felt chosen? Not much of a dancer? The voice startled me. I turned to find a man standing a few feet away, holding a plastic cup of punch. He looked to be in his early 30s, with dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead and eyes that seemed to hold entire universes of untold stories. But it was his clothes that caught my attention. He wore a simple gray jacket that had definitely seen better days, jeans that were faded at the knees, and worn sneakers. His watch, if you could call it, that looked like something from a dollar store. He didn't belong with Marcus's crowd. He belonged with me. Oh, I dance, I said, surprising myself with my boldness. Maybe it was the fact that he looked as out of place as I felt. Maybe it was the gentle smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I just don't usually have anyone to dance with. He tilted his head, studying me with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. That seems like a problem we could solve. My heart did a strange little flip. Are you asking me to dance? Actually, he said, his smile widening. I was hoping you might ask me. There was something about his tone, playful but genuine, that made me laugh. A real laugh, not the polite chuckle I usually forced at Sarah's boyfriend's mediocre jokes. All right then. I set down my plate and held out my hand, channeling a confidence I didn't actually feel. Would you like to dance with me? His eyes lit up, and when he took my hand, his grip was warm and steady. I thought you'd never ask. Asterisk, he led me onto the dance floor with an ease that suggested he'd done this before. His hand settled on my waist, and I placed mine on his shoulder, very aware of how close we were standing. The band was playing something slow and bluesy, and we began to move together, finding our rhythm. I'm Emma, I said, needing to fill the silence. Daniel, his voice was low, soothing. It's nice to meet you, Emma. So, Daniel, what brings you to a community center fundraiser on a Friday night? Not exactly the hottest spot in town. He chuckled, and the sound rumbled through his chest. I could ask you the same thing. Free food, and the promise of human interaction. You, similar reasons. Actually, he spun me gently, and I found myself laughing again. Plus, I heard the band was good. They're okay, I admitted. Though I think they've played Moon River about 4 times already. 5, he corrected, his eyes twinkling. But who's counting? We danced in comfortable silence for a moment, and I found myself studying him more closely. There was something about Daniel that didn't quite add up. He wore the clothes of someone struggling financially, but he carried himself with a quiet confidence that spoke of someone completely comfortable in his own skin. His hands, though calloused, were clean and well-maintained, and when he spoke, his voice had the polished quality of someone educated. So what do you do, Daniel? I asked. He seemed to hesitate, just for a fraction of a second. I work in business, nothing too exciting. What about you? I'm a graphic designer. The light came easily. It was what I told everyone, even though it wasn't quite true. Freelance, mostly. That sounds creative. Do you enjoy it? I love designing, I said honestly. It's the freelance part that's killing me. Turns out, pursuing your passion doesn't automatically pay the rent. He nodded, something like understanding crossing his features. The world doesn't make it easy for artists, does it? No, I agreed softly. It really doesn't. The song ended, but neither of us moved to separate. Instead, Daniel asked, would you like to get some air? It's getting a bit warm in here. I should have said no. I should have thanked him for the dance and returned to my corner, to my safe little bubble of solitude. But something about Daniel made me want to be brave. I'd like that, I said. The community center had a small patio area out back, overlooking a park that was lit by old-fashioned street lamps. We found a bench and sat down, the cool night air a welcome relief from the stuffy interior. So, Emma who designs things, Daniel said, turning to face me. Tell me something real, not the polished version you tell strangers at parties. Something true. The request caught me off guard. People didn't usually ask for truth, they asked for the highlight reel, the Instagram-worthy version of your life. Why would you want to hear the messy parts? I asked. Because the messy parts are usually the most interesting. I studied him in the dim light. This stranger who had somehow made me feel more seen in 30 minutes than I'd felt in months. All right, I said slowly. Something true. I'm broke. Like, can single quotes T-afford groceries this week broke. I work 3 jobs and I'm still drowning in bills. I have an art degree that's basically worthless, and I spend most of my time wondering if I made a huge mistake pursuing something I love instead of something practical. The words tumbled out before I could stop them, and immediately I felt exposed, vulnerable. I'm sorry, I added quickly. That was probably way too much information. Don't apologize. Daniel's voice was firm but gentle. Thank you for being honest. Your turn, I said, desperate to shift the focus away from my failures. Something true. He was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the distant park. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. I'm lonely. I'm surrounded by people all the time. But I'm lonely. Everyone wants something from me, and I can't remember the last time someone just wanted to be with me. For me, there was such raw honesty in his words that my chest tightened. I think I understand that, I said softly. Feeling invisible even when people are looking right at you. Exactly. He turned to me, and in his eyes, I saw a reflection of my own loneliness. It's exhausting, isn't it? So exhausting, we sat in comfortable silence, watching the streetlights flicker against the dark sky. It was one of those perfect moments, the kind you want to bottle up and keep forever. Can I ask you something? Daniel said eventually. Sure. Why did you ask me to dance? Out of everyone in that room, why me? I considered the question. Honestly, you looked as out of place as I felt, and I hesitated, then decided to be brave again. You look kind, like someone who might understand what it's like to not quite fit in. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. I'm glad you took that chance. Me too, Emmer. Sarah's voice cut through the moment. She appeared on the patio, slightly breathless. There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. Marcus and I are heading out. Do you need a ride? I glanced at Daniel, reluctant to leave. Go, he said gently. Your friend's waiting. Will I see you again? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Something flickered across his face. Hesitation. Hope, would you want to? Yes, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. When he handed it to me, I noticed the card was simple, with just a name and phone number. No company logo, no fancy title. Text me, he said. Anytime, Emma. Sarah called again. I stood reluctantly, clutching the card. Good night, Daniel. Good night, Emma. Thank you for the dance. As Sarah pulled me away, bombarding me with questions about the cute guy in the corner, I glanced back one last time. Daniel was still sitting on the bench, watching me go. When our eyes met, he raised his hand in a small wave. I waved back, my heart doing that strange flip again. I had no idea that the card in my pocket was about to change everything. I had no idea that the man I just danced with wasn't struggling at all, and I certainly had no idea that by the time I discovered the truth, I'd already be falling in love with him. Asterisk, I stared at Daniel's business card for 3 days straight. It sat on my bedside table, plain and unassuming, mocking me every morning when I woke up and every night before I fell asleep. The paper was expensive, I could tell that much from the weight and texture, but the design was minimalist. Just his name in simple black font, Daniel Cross. Below it, a phone number. Nothing else. Just text him already, Sarah said during our coffee meetup on Tuesday. We were at the cafe where I worked mornings, and I'd brought her a latte on the house, one of the few perks of my job. What would I even say? I stirred my own coffee nervously. Hi, remember me? The broke girl who info dumped her entire life story on you after one dance. Sarah rolled her eyes. How about, "Hi, I had a great time Friday night. Would you like to get coffee sometime?" You know, like a normal person. I don't know if I can do normal right now. I'm barely holding it together as it is. I gestured around the cafe. I picked up extra shifts this week because my landlord is threatening to evict me if I'm late on rent again. Emmer. Sarah's expression softened into that pitying look I'd come to dread. "Let me help. I can lend you." No, the word came out sharper than I intended. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I know you mean well, but I can't keep borrowing money from you. I need to figure this out on my own." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're deprived for your own good. You know that? Pride is about all I have left." After Sarah left for work, I pulled out my phone during my break and stared at the blank message screen. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Just do it, I told myself. What's the worst that could happen? Finally, I typed, "Hi Daniel, this is Emma from Friday night. I wanted to say thank you for the dance. It was the highlight of my week." I hit send before I could overthink it further. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Daniel, Emma, I was hoping I'd hear from you. That dance was the highlight of my week too. Are you free tomorrow evening?" My heart did that flip thing again. Me. "I have tutoring until 6, but I'm free after that. Daniel, perfect. How about dinner? Nothing fancy. I know a place that makes the best burgers in the city. Me. That sounds amazing. Send me the address." "Daniel, actually, if you're comfortable with it, I could pick you up, only if that's okay. I understand if you'd rather meet there." I appreciated that he gave me an out, that he didn't assume. It made me feel safe. Me. Picking me up works. Fair warning though, my apartment building isn't in the best neighborhood. "Daniel, I don't care about neighborhoods. Emmer, I care about seeing you again." I read that last message about 15 times, a smile growing on my face that I couldn't seem to wipe away. Wednesday evening. I stood in front of my closet in a mild panic. What does one wear to have burgers with a guy who makes your heart race, but whom you know absolutely nothing about? The navy dress seemed too formal. Jeans and a t-shirt felt too casual. Everything in between was either too worn out or too whatever the opposite of worn out was that I didn't tone. I finally settled on dark jeans, a white blouse I'd thrifted last year, and a denim jacket. Simple, casual, please -on single quotas -let this -be -a -disaster. At 6:30 p.m. exactly, my phone buzzed with a message from Daniel letting me know he was outside. I grabbed my purse and headed downstairs, my stomach doing nervous flips. When I pushed through the building's front door, I stopped short. Daniel was leaning against an older model sedan, nothing fancy, probably a decade old, with a few dents in the side. He wore jeans and a simple gray Henley, and when he saw me, his face lit up with that same genuine smile from Friday night. "Hi," he said, pushing off the car. "Hi yourself." He opened the passenger door for me, an old-fashioned gesture that made my chest warm, and then jogged around to the driver's side. The interior of the car was clean but worn. The seats had patches where the fabric had thinned, and the radio looked like it was original to the vehicle. Somehow, this made me relax. He wasn't trying to impress me with wealth or status. This felt real. "So," Daniel said as he pulled into traffic, "how was your day?" "Exhausting," I admitted. I had back-to-back tutoring sessions with teenagers who would rather text their friends than learn about the Pythagorean theorem. He laughed. "I'm guessing math isn't your strong suit either?" "God, no. I chose art specifically to avoid math. Little did I know that running a freelance business would require me to become an accountant, marketer, and collection agent all rolled into one. The things they don't teach you in school," he said with understanding. "Exactly. What about you? How was work?" He hesitated, just like he had on Friday when I asked what he did. "Busy, lots of meetings, the usual corporate stuff." Something about his tone suggested he didn't want to elaborate, so I let it drop. Everyone had their reasons for privacy. The restaurant Daniel brought me to was a tiny hole-in-the-wall place called Mickey's, with chipped paint on the walls and vinyl booths that had seen better decades. The smell of grilling meat and fried onions filled the air, and my stomach growled appreciatively. "This okay?" Daniel asked, suddenly looking uncertain. "I know it doesn't look like much, but it's perfect." I cut him off. "I'm so tired of pretentious places that charge $20 for a salad the size of my palm. This is exactly what I need." His shoulders relaxed. "Good, because Mickey makes the best burgers this side of the Mississippi." A waitress who looked like she'd been working there since the Reagan administration sauntered over. "Danny, where have you been, hun? Haven't seen you in weeks." "Hi, Carol. I've been busy. Huh?" She looked at me with interest. "And who's this pretty thing?" "This is Emma. Emma, this is Carol. She's been putting up with me since I was in college." "College? Carol winked at me. "He used to come in here and study till midnight. Drove me crazy, taking up booth space for hours. But he always tipped well, so I let it slide." "Carol." Daniel's cheeks flushed slightly. All right. I'll stop embarrassing you. What can I get you to?" We ordered burgers and fries, and after Carol left, I leaned forward. "So you've been coming here since college?" "Yeah, it became kind of a refuge for me. Quiet place to think. Good food. And Carol never judged me for sitting alone." "Were you alone a lot?" The question came out softer than I intended. Daniel's expression grew distant. "More than I wanted to be. But that's a long story. I like long stories." He studied me across the table, something vulnerable flickering in his eyes. "Maybe I'll tell you sometime, when we know each other better." "Deal," I said. "But fair warning, I'm going to hold you to that." When the food arrived, it was exactly as advertised, the best burger I'd had in years. We ate and talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, worst jobs we'd ever had, the books that changed our lives. Daniel was funny in a quiet way, with a dry sense of humor that caught me off guard and made me laugh until my sides hurt. He listened when I talked, really listened, not just waiting for his turn to speak. And every time our eyes met across the table, I felt that same electric spark from Friday night. "Can I ask you something?" I said as we were finishing our food. "Shoot. Why did you say yes when I asked you to dance?" "I got the impression you weren't really into the whole fundraiser scene." He set down his burger, wiping his hands on a napkin. "Honestly, I almost didn't go that night. I'd had a really long week, and the last thing I wanted was to make small talk with strangers. So what changed your mind?" "I don't know. Something told me I needed to be there." He met my gaze. "And then this brave, beautiful woman walked up to me and asked me to dance. And I realized that was why I was supposed to be there to meet you." My breath caught. "That's incredibly cheesy." "I know." He grinned. "But it's true." "Daniel, yeah? I'm really glad you said yes." "Me too." "Emma, me too." After dinner, Daniel drove me home. But when we reached my building, neither of us made a move to leave the car. The night had gotten chilly, and the windows were starting to fog up. The streetlight outside cast everything in a warm orange glow. "Thank you for tonight," I said, my fingers playing with the strap of my purse. "I haven't had that much fun in. I can't even remember how long. We should do it again. Soon." "I'd like that." Silence settled between us, charged with something I couldn't quite name. Daniel's hand was resting on the center console, close enough that I could feel its warmth. "Emma," he said softly, "can I be honest with you about something? Please. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since Friday night, and tonight just confirmed what I already suspected." "What's that?" He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes made my pulse race. "That meeting you might have been the best thing that's happened to me in a very long time." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the magnetic pull between us as Daniel leaned closer. "Is this okay?" he whispered, his face inches from mine. "Yes," I breathed. He closed the distance slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away. But I didn't want to. I wanted him with a certainty that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. Our lips met softly, tentatively. The kiss was gentle, questioning, as if we were both afraid of breaking the spell. But then Daniel's hand came up to cut my cheek, and I leaned into him. and the kiss deepened into something that felt like coming home. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Wow, I said. Yeah, wow. We sat there in the car for another 10 minutes, talking in low voices, stealing more kisses, neither wanting the night to end. Finally, reluctantly, I reached for the door handle. I should go. I have to open the cafe at 5 tomorrow morning. 5 a.m. Daniel looked horrified. That's inhumane. Welcome to the glamorous world of the working poor. I tried to keep my tone light, but something flickered across his face. Guilt, sadness, Emma. If you ever need, don't. I cut him off gently. Please, I don't need pity or charity. I just need this, whatever this is between us. He nodded, understanding. Okay, but I'm here. If you need anything, even if it's just someone to talk to. Same goes for you. I leaned over and kissed him one more time, quick and sweet, before climbing out of the car. Text me when you get home safe. I asked. I live 20 minutes away. But yes, I'll text you. I watched him drive away, my fingers touching my lips where his had been, a smile playing on my face that refused to leave. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed. Daniel, home safe. Dreaming of you already. Sleep well, Emma. Me. Sweet dreams, Daniel. Tonight was perfect. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that while I was falling asleep in my cramped studio apartment, Daniel was returning to a penthouse in the most expensive building in the city. What I didn't know was that the business he worked in was his own company, a tech empire worth billions. What I didn't know was that everything I thought I knew about him was about to be shattered. But for that one perfect night, we were just Emma and Daniel, two lonely people who'd found each other. And that was enough. The next 3 weeks were the happiest I'd been in years. Daniel and I fell into an easy rhythm. He'd text me good morning before my early cafe shift, send me funny memes during my lunch breaks, and we'd talk on the phone for hours after I got home from my evening tutoring sessions. We saw each other whenever we could squeeze it in, quick coffee dates between my jobs, late night walks through the city after he got off work, lazy Sunday afternoons in the park where we'd lie on a blanket and watch clouds drift by. He never pressured me about my schedule or made me feel guilty for being busy. Instead, he adapted to my life, fitting himself into the chaos of my 3 jobs with a patience that astounded me. Don't you have work? I asked him one Thursday when he showed up at the cafe during my afternoon shift with a bag of fresh croissants from the bakery down the street. I took a half day, he said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. Wanted to see your face. My coworker, Jenny, elbowed me in the ribs with a grin. Girl, if you don't marry this one, I will. Daniel left. But there was something in his eyes, a shadow that flickered and disappeared before I could identify it. Still, I noticed things, little things that didn't quite add up, like how he always insisted on paying for our dates, even when I protested. How his old car never seemed to have any mechanical issues despite its age. How he was always vague about where he lived or what exactly his job entailed. It's boring corporate stuff, he'd say whenever I asked. Trust me, you'd fall asleep if I went into details. I didn't push. Everyone was entitled to their privacy. And honestly, I was too happy to question it too deeply. For the first time in years, I felt like someone truly saw me. Not the struggling version of me, not the failure to launch me, but the real me underneath all the stress and worry. Daniel made me laugh. He listened to my dreams about opening my own design studio someday. He remembered little details I mentioned in passing, like how I preferred tea to coffee or how I love old black and white movies. With him, I felt cherished, valued, enough. And if a small voice in the back of my head occasionally whispered that something felt off, I ignored it. I was too afraid of losing what we had. Asterisk. Everything changed on a Saturday afternoon in late October. Sarah had invited me to her apartment for lunch, and when I arrived, I found her pacing her living room with an envelope in her hand. Okay, don't freak out, she said before I'd even taken my coat off. That's never a good way to start a conversation. Marcus got tickets to the Tech Innovation Gala next weekend. It's this huge black tie event where all the big players in the city's tech industry show up, and she thrust the envelope at me. He got an extra ticket. I want you to come. I stared at the elegant invitation like it might bite me. Sarah, I can't afford a gown for something like that. I'll lend you one of mine. We're practically the same size. Come on, Emma. When was the last time you did something fancy? Something fun? I laughed bitterly. I'd spend the entire night worrying about using the wrong fork or saying the wrong thing. That's not my world. Sarah, it could be. For one night, at least. She grabbed my hands, her expression earnest. Please, I hate going to these things without you. Marcus's coworkers are all boring as hell, and I need my best friend there to keep me sane. I wanted to say no. Every instinct told me I'd be out of place at an event like that, but Sarah looked so hopeful, and I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something nice for myself. Okay, I heard myself say. One night, Sarah squealed and hugged me. Yes, you won't regret this, I promise. But as I looked at that invitation at the gold lettering and the promise of a world I didn't belong to, a sense of foreboding settled in my stomach. I should have listened to it. Asterisk. The week leading up to the gala was chaos. Sarah insisted on taking me dress shopping, even though I'd agreed to borrow one of hers. We spent an entire afternoon trying on gowns in a boutique that probably cost more than my monthly rent. This one, Sarah said, emerging from the dressing room, a stunning emerald green number. It's gorgeous, I agreed. But Sarah, I still don't think. Stop overthinking and try this on. She shoved a midnight blue gown at me. Trust me, the dress was beautiful. A floor-length silk number with delicate beading on the bodice and a neckline that was elegant without being too revealing. When I stepped out of the dressing room, even I had to admit I looked different, sophisticated, like I belonged in that world of galas and champagne. You're getting it, Sarah declared. I'm borrowing it, I corrected. Same difference. On the night of the gala, Sarah came over early to help me get ready. She did my makeup subtle, but polished and helped me wrestle my hair into an elegant updo. You look like a princess, she said, stepping back to admire her work. I barely recognized myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked confident, put together, successful. Everything I wasn't, Emma, Sarah said gently, reading my expression. You deserve this. You deserve to feel beautiful and have a magical night. Stop telling yourself you don't belong. What if I see Daniel there? The question tumbled out before I could stop it. Sarah frowned. Why would Daniel be at a tech gala? I thought he worked in. What did he say? Generic business stuff. He did, but he's been so secretive about his job. And sometimes I wonder what? Nothing. I shook my head, forcing a smile. Never mind, I'm just being paranoid. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to discover something I wasn't ready to know. The Tech Innovation Gala was held at the Grand Regency Hotel, the kind of place I'd only seen in movies. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and men in tuxedos escorting women dripping in diamonds. I felt like an imposter. Breathe, Sarah whispered as we entered the ballroom. You look stunning. Own it? Marcus was already inside, chatting with a group of people near the bar. When he saw us, he waved us over. Sarah, Emma, you both look incredible. He kissed Sarah's cheek before turning to me. Emma, let me introduce you to some people. This is David Chen. He runs. I smiled and nodded as Marcus made introductions, my mind spinning with names and titles I'd never remember. Everyone here seemed to know exactly where they fit in the world. Everyone except me. I'm going to get a drink, I told Sarah after the fifth introduction. Be right back. I made my way to the bar, grateful for a moment alone. The bartender, a young woman who looked barely out of college, smiled sympathetically. Overwhelming, isn't it? She said as she poured me a glass of wine. Is it that obvious? Only because I feel the same way. I'm just working the event. But these people, she gestured around the room. It's like they're from another planet. I laughed. Exactly. I took my wine and wandered toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. From up here, everything looked small and manageable. Neat little grids of light, organized chaos. If only my life felt that orderly. Emma, the voice behind me made my blood run cold. No, it couldn't be. I turned slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. Daniel stood 3 feet away, looking like someone I'd never met before. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo that probably cost more than my car. His hair was styled instead of falling casually over his forehead, and on his wrist was a watch that I recognized from a magazine spread I designed layouts for. A Patek Philippe, worth at least $50,000. The dollar store watch from our first date was nowhere in sight. Daniel, my voice came out as a whisper. He looked stricken, pale, like he'd seen a ghost. Emma, what are you doing here? My friend Sarah got tickets. What are you doing here? Before he could answer, a woman in a stunning red dress appeared at his side, looping her arm through his possessively. She was gorgeous, the kind of beautiful that graces magazine covers, and she looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her designer shoe. Daniel, darling, they're about to announce the award. We need to get to our table. Her voice was smooth, cultured, everything mine wasn't. Just a minute. Vanessa. The name hit me like a slap. Emma, Daniel said urgently, reaching for my hand. I jerked away like he'd burn me. Please, let me explain, Mr. Cross. Another voice joined the chaos. An older man in an expensive suit approached with a wide smile. Daniel Cross, I've been looking for you. I wanted to discuss the merger proposal. Daniel Cross, the name registered slowly, pieces clicking into place like a nightmare puzzle. Daniel Cross, CEO of Crosstech Industries, billionaire, Forbes 30 under 30, one of the most powerful men in the tech world. The articles I'd read about him flashed through my mind, how he'd built his empire from nothing, how he was notoriously private, how he'd been linked to various socialites and models. The room started spinning. Emma, Daniel's voice seemed to come from very far away. You lied to me. The words felt like broken glass in my throat. This whole time, everything was a lie. No, that's not. The car, the burger joint, my voice cracked. You let me talk about being broke, about struggling, and you just sat there. You lied. I never lied about my feelings for you, but you lied about everything else. I was vaguely aware that people were starting to stare, but I couldn't stop. The humiliation, the betrayal, it all came pouring out. Was this some kind of game? Slumming it with the poor girl. Did you get a kick out of watching me struggle while you, Emma, please? His eyes were desperate, pleading. Let me explain. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Daniel? Or should I call you Mr. Cross? I spat the name like a curse. Daniel, we really need to go, Vanessa said coldly, tightening her grip on his arm. I looked at her, then at Daniel, then down at my borrowed dress. The beautiful gown that had made me feel like I belonged suddenly felt like a costume, a cruel joke. I need to leave, I said, backing away. Emma, wait. No, tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't care who saw. Don't follow me. Don't call me. Don't. Just don't. I turned and ran, my heels clicking against the marble floor, my vision blurred with tears. Behind me, I heard Daniel call my name, but I didn't stop. Sarah caught up with me in the lobby. Emma, what happened? I saw you running. I need to go home. Now, please. She didn't ask questions, just grabbed her coat and guided me to the valet. I spent the next week in a fog. I didn't answer Daniel's calls, and there were many. Dozens. I didn't read his texts, which filled my phone with walls of words I couldn't bear to look at. I went to work, came home, stared at the ceiling. Repeat, Emma, you need to talk about this, Sarah said when she showed up at my apartment with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. You can't just shut down. What's there to talk about? I picked at my low mean without appetite. He's a billionaire who pretended to be struggling like me. He let me pour my heart out about my failures. Well, he was probably laughing at me the whole time. I don't think he was laughing. Then what was he doing? Sarah, why would someone like him waste his time with someone like me? Maybe because he genuinely cared about you? I let out a bitter laugh. Right. because billionaires regularly fall for broke graphic designers. This is real life, not a fairy tale. Emma, I need you to leave. The words came out harsher than I intended. I'm sorry, I can't do this right now. Sarah left reluctantly, and I was alone again with my thoughts. The worst part wasn't the deception, though that hurt like hell. The worst part was that I'd believed it. I believed that someone could see past my struggles and failures and want me anyway. I'd let myself hope. And hope, I was learning, was the most dangerous thing of all. 2 weeks after the gala, I came home from work to find Daniel sitting on the steps of my apartment building. He looked terrible. His usually neat hair was disheveled. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he was wearing jeans and the old gray jacket from our first date. What are you doing here? I asked flatly. You won't answer my calls. You blocked my number. I had to see you. Well, you've seen me. Now leave. Emma, please. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. You don't get to ask me for anything. I tried to walk past him, but he stood, blocking my path without touching me. I know I don't deserve your time. I know I hurt you, but I'm begging you, let me explain. Explain what? That you're a billionaire who decided to play dress up. That you found it amusing to watch me struggle while I was protecting myself. The words burst out of him, raw and desperate. Everyone I've ever dated, everyone I've ever trusted, they wanted my money, my connections, my status. Never just me. So you lied? I didn't lie. I didn't tell you everything. And I know that's the same thing. I know it is. But Emma, when I met you and you asked me to dance for the first time in years, someone saw me. Not Daniel Cross, CEO, not the billionaire, or the Forbes cover, or the company. Just Daniel, a guy sitting in the corner at the community center. His voice cracked on the last words. And despite everything, my heart clenched. That first night, he continued, you talked about being broke and struggling, and I wanted to tell you. God, I wanted to, but I was so afraid that if you knew, everything would change. You'd either be intimidated or you'd want something from me. And I couldn't lose that feeling of being seen, of being enough just as I was. But you weren't being yourself, I said, my own voice breaking. You were playing a part, pretending, maybe at first. But every moment with you, every conversation, every feeling that was real, the most real thing in my life. He took a careful step closer. Emma, I'm in love with you. I have been since that first dance. And I know I screwed up. I know I should have told you sooner. But please don't throw away what we have because I was too much of a coward to risk losing you. I stared at him, tears streaming down my face. How can I trust you now? How do I know any of it was real? Because I'm here. I'm standing in front of you, not as Daniel Cross the billionaire, but as Daniel, the guy who is terrified of losing the best thing that's ever happened to him. He held out his hands, palms up. I'm not asking you to forgive me right now. I'm just asking for a chance to earn your trust back. However long it takes. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything said and unsaid. I need time, I finally whispered. I need to think. Daniel nodded slowly, defeat written across his features. Okay, take all the time you need. I'll be here whenever you're ready. He turned to leave, and something inside me cracked. Daniel, he spun back around, hope flickering in his eyes. That first night, at the community center, was any of that real? He closed the distance between us, and when he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. That was the most real moment of my life, and every moment after. You have to believe that. I want to, I admitted. I just don't know if I can. Then let me prove it to you, please. I looked at him, really looked at him. Past the expensive clothes and the billion-dollar empire, past the lies and the deception, and I saw the same man who'd held me while we danced, who'd made me laugh at Mickey's, who'd made me feel like I was enough. But I also saw all the ways he'd let me believe a fiction, all the moments he could have told the truth, but chose not to. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know if I can do this. And with that, I walked past him into my building. leaving him standing alone on the steps. I didn't look back. If I had, I would have seen him sink down onto the steps, his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. I would have seen a man who just realized he'd lost the best thing in his life. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. Not yet. Asterisk. 3 weeks crawled by in a haze of unanswered questions and sleepless nights. I threw myself into work extra shifts at the cafe, longer tutoring sessions, more freelance projects than I could handle. Anything to keep my mind from circling back to Daniel, to the hurt, to the confusion, to the small, traitorous part of my heart that missed him desperately. Sarah tried to help, bringing me food and forcing me to watch mindless romantic comedies that now felt like cruel jokes. Marcus was surprisingly supportive too, showing up once with pizza and a genuine apology. "I should have told you," he said that night, sitting on my ratty couch. I knew who Daniel was the moment Sarah described him to me. "I should have warned you. Would I have listened?" I asked bitterly. Probably not. But still, Daniel had stopped calling after that night on my steps. But he hadn't disappeared entirely. Instead, I'd find small reminders that he was still there, still waiting. A bouquet of sunflowers, my favorite, delivered to the cafe with no note. My landlord mysteriously agreeing to let me pay my overdue rent in installments without penalties. An envelope slipped under my door containing a donation receipt to an arts education charity in my name. Each gesture made me furious and heartbroken in equal measure. "He's trying to buy your forgiveness," I told myself firmly, shoving the donation receipt into a drawer. But a quieter voice whispered, "Or he's trying to show you who he really is." Asterisk. 4 weeks after the gala, a letter arrived, not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter, delivered by courier to my door. The envelope was simple, my name in Daniel's familiar handwriting, nothing else. I stared at it for an hour before I found the courage to open it. "Dear Emmer, I've started this letter 100 times, and every version ends up in the trash. How do you put into words all the ways you've failed someone who meant everything to you? I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to tell you that I had good reasons for keeping my identity from you. Because looking back, I realized that my reasons were selfish. I was so focused on protecting myself from being hurt that I didn't stop to think about how I might hurt you. You asked me once if any of it was real. Emmer, it was all real. Every single moment. The truth is, I've spent most of my adult life surrounded by people who wanted things from me. My money, my influence, my connections. For years, I've had to question every friendship, every relationship, every kind gesture. Is this person genuine? Or are they just positioning themselves for some advantage? It made me cynical, guarded, lonely in a way I didn't know how to fix. And then you walked up to me in a community center and asked me to dance. You didn't know who I was. You didn't want anything from me except companionship. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I should have told you the truth that first night, or at the burger place, or any of the dozens of perfect moments we shared. But I was terrified that if you knew, you'd look at me differently. You'd either be intimidated by the money, or worse, you'd want me for it. I know that sounds arrogant. I know it does. But Emmer, you have to understand, you were the first person in years who made me feel like Daniel the man, not Daniel Cross the brand. And I was so desperate to hold onto that feeling that I convinced myself the lies of omission didn't matter. But they did matter. They mattered so much. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for making you doubt what we had, for making you feel like you were part of some game. You were never that. You are everything. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. Not yet. But I am asking you to let me show you who I really am. Not the version I showed you. And not the version you saw at the gala. The real me, messy and imperfect and absolutely, completely in love with you. If you're willing to give me a chance, just one more chance, meet me at Mickey's tomorrow night at 7 p.m. If you don't come, I'll understand. I'll respect your decision and I won't bother you again. But Emmer, please come. Please let me prove to you that what we had was real. Yours, always. Daniele read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words by the end. What do I do? I asked Sarah over the phone that night. What does your heart tell you? My heart is an idiot who got me into this mess. Sarah laughed softly. Fair. But Emmer, you have to ask yourself, are you angrier about the lie? Or are you angrier that you fell for someone who seemed too good to be true? Both. Neither. I don't know. I sank onto my bed, emotionally exhausted. I miss him, Sarah. God, I miss him so much. But how do I trust him again? You don't. Not right away. Trust is earned, and he knows that. But if you still love him, and I think you do, then maybe he deserves the chance to earn it back. And if he breaks my heart again, then you'll survive it. You're one of the strongest people I know, Emmer Collins. But what if you don't give him a chance and spend the rest of your life wondering what if? That question haunted me all night. Asterisk the next evening, I stood outside Mickey's at 6:55 p.m., my hand on the door handle, my heart in my throat. I changed outfits 5 times, redone my makeup 3 times, talked myself out of coming at least a dozen times during the drive over. But here I was, last chance to run, I told myself. Instead, I pulled open the door. Mickey's looked exactly the same as it had on our first date, same chip paint, same vinyl boots, same smell of grilling meat. But the restaurant was empty except for one person. Daniel sat in our usual booth, wearing jeans and the old gray jacket. The dollar store watch was back on his wrist. When he saw me, he stood so quickly he almost knocked over his water glass. Emma, you came. I almost didn't. I walked over slowly, sliding into the booth across from him. I'm still not sure this is a good idea. I know. Thank you for giving me this chance. Carol appeared with menus and a knowing smile. Well, look who finally worked things out. We haven't worked anything out yet, I said firmly. But we're trying, Daniel added, his eyes never leaving mine. Carol winked. That's all that matters, hon. I'll give you to some privacy. After she left, silence settled over us. Daniel looked nervous, his hands fidgeting with his napkin in a way I'd never seen before. I don't know where to start, he admitted. How about the truth? All of it? This time, he nodded. Okay, the truth. My full name is Daniel Alexander Cross. I'm 32 years old. I founded CrossTech Industries when I was 23. I developed an algorithm for data encryption that got bought by a major tech company. I used that money to start my own firm, and it grew fast. How fast? The company's currently valued at about $3 billion. The number hit me like a physical blow. $3 billion. It was incomprehensible. I have homes in 5 cities, he continued, his voice mechanical, like he was reciting facts he'd rather forget. I sit on the boards of 3 companies. I get invited to about 50 events a month that I hate attending. And up until 5 weeks ago, I'd been in exactly one relationship in the past 3 years with a woman who, it turned out, was selling information about my company to a competitor the entire time we were together. Daniel, I'm not telling you this for pity. I'm telling you because you need to understand where I was mentally when I met you. I'd become so cynical, so suspicious of everyone's motives, that I basically isolated myself. Work, gym, occasional required social events. That was my life. He finally met my eyes, and the vulnerability I saw there took my breath away. And then I went to a community center fundraiser because my assistant insisted I needed to do more man of the people appearances for PR. I was planning to stay for 20 minutes, make a donation, and leave. But then you walked up to me and asked me to dance. And what? And for the first time in years, I felt like a human being instead of a bank account. His voice cracked. You treated me like I was worth something beyond my net worth. And I got addicted to that feeling. To you, I took a shaky breath, fighting back tears. I understand why you didn't tell me that first night. I even understand why you waited a few days. But Daniel, we were together for 3 weeks. You had so many chances to tell me the truth. I know, and instead, I had to find out in the most humiliating way possible, in front of hundreds of people, including that woman, Vanessa. He said the name with distaste. We're not together. She's the daughter of a business partner who's been trying to manufacture a relationship between us for years. I've told her repeatedly I'm not interested, but she doesn't take no for an answer. She seemed pretty comfortable on your arm. She ambushed me at the gala. I'd been planning to tell you everything that night. Emmer, I was going to come clean about who I was, explain everything, and hope you could forgive me. But then you showed up before I had the chance, and everything fell apart. You were going to tell me? I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. I swear. I even wrote out what I was going to say. Want to see it? He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his notes app, and showed me a long, rambling draft dated the day of the gala. I read through it, all the nervous explanations, the apologies, the confessions of love. It was raw and honest and so very Daniel. Why should I believe you won't lie to me again? I whispered, because I've learned my lesson. Because I'd rather lose you honestly than keep you with lies. And because he reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. Because I love you, Emma, not the version of you that you think you should be. Not some polished, perfect version. I love the woman who asked a stranger to dance, who makes terrible puns, who falls asleep during movies, but swears she was just resting her eyes. I love your kindness and your strength, and the way you see the world. Tears were streaming down my face now. You really hurt me, I know, and I will spend however long it takes making it up to you. If you'll let me, I don't want your money. Daniel, I need you to understand that I do. You've made that abundantly clear. In fact, you're the only person who's ever been angry at me for having money instead of trying to get some of it. He smiled sadly. It's one of the things I love about you. Things are going to have to be different. If we tried this again, I know. Name your terms. I thought about it, wiping my tears with a napkin Carol had somehow materialized on the table. No more secrets about anything. If something's bothering you, you tell me. If you have to attend some fancy event, you tell me. Complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. Done. And I need time. I can't just flip a switch and trust you again. You're going to have to earn that back. I'll earn it back, I promise. And I took a deep breath. I need you to understand that my life isn't going to change overnight. I still have 3 jobs. I still have bills to pay. I still have to make my own way. I won't be some kept woman. I would never expect you to be. Your independence is part of who you are. Emmer, I wouldn't want to change that. He paused. But can I make a request? What? If you're ever in trouble, really in trouble, promise you'll let me help. Not because you owe me anything, but because that's what people do when they love each other. They help each other. I considered this. Pride had always been my downfall, the thing that kept me from accepting help even when I desperately needed it. But maybe Daniel had a point. Maybe letting someone in wasn't weakness, it was trust. Okay, I said quietly. If I'm really in trouble, I'll let you help. But Daniel, yeah, this is your one chance. If you lie to me again, if you keep secrets or make me feel like I'm not worth your honesty, we're done. For good. I won't survive having my heart broken by you twice. I understand. And Emma, I swear to you I will never give you a reason to doubt me again. We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of everything we'd said hanging in the air. So, Daniel said finally, a tentative smile forming. Can we start over? Not all the way back to the beginning, but from here? I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the fear in his eyes, the hope, the love. I saw the man who danced with me in a community center, who'd bought me burgers and made me laugh, who'd listened to my dreams and made me feel seen. But I also saw the man who'd hurt me, who'd lied, even if the lies were ones of omission. And I had to decide if I was brave enough to risk my heart again. I'm scared, I admitted. Me too. What if we can't make this work? What if the differences between our lives are too big? Then we'll figure it out together. Emma, I'm not asking you to have all the answers right now. I'm just asking you to take this one step with me, and then another, and another. We'll figure out the rest as we go. I looked down at his hand on the table, still waiting for mine. It would be so easy to walk away, to protect myself, to say no and mean it. But when had I ever taken the easy path? Okay, I said, placing my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine immediately, warm and solid and real. One step at a time, the smile that broke across Daniel's face was like sunrise after a long night. One step at a time, he repeated. Carol chose that moment to reappear with a knowing grin. So, are we celebrating or are we drowning sorrows? Because my recommendation changes based on the answer. Celebrating, Daniel said, never taking his eyes off me. Definitely celebrating. To burgers, extra fries, and your best milkshakes. Coming right up. Asterisk, they say time heals all wounds. But I think it's more accurate to say that time gives you perspective. Daniel and I didn't rush back into our relationship. We took it slow, painfully slow at times. We went to couples counseling, yes. A billionaire and a barely employed graphic designer in therapy together. The therapist was fascinated. We had hard conversations about trust and boundaries, and what we both needed from each other. There were setbacks, times when old insecurities crept back in, when I wondered if I was kidding myself thinking this could work. Times when Daniel's public life intruded on what we were trying to build, and I had to decide all over again if I was strong enough for this. But there were also moments of extraordinary joy. Daniel helped me land my first major design contract, a legitimate one, where I won the bid fair and square based on my portfolio. I started building my freelance business into something real, something sustainable. I even quit 2 of my 3 jobs, keeping only the tutoring, because I genuinely enjoy it. Daniel brought me into his world slowly, respecting my need to maintain my own identity. I met his colleagues, attended events at his side in my own dresses this time, bought with my own money. Some people in his circle were kind. Others looked at me like I was a gold digger. I learned to ignore the whispers and hold my head high. He came into my world to really came into it. He met my parents. That was an experience watching my father's face when he realized who my boyfriend was. He came to my tutoring sessions and helped kids with their math homework. He learned the names of all my regular cafe customers from my old job. We found our balance, our normal. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, I learned to trust him again. It happened on a Tuesday night, 6 months after we'd reconciled, in the most perfect way possible. Daniel picked me up after my last tutoring session, and I assumed we were going to dinner. Instead, he drove us to the Riverside Community Center. What are we doing here? I asked as he parked. You'll see. Inside, the community center had been transformed. The same string lights from that first night hung from the ceiling, and the same local jazz band played softly in the corner. But the room was empty except for us. Daniel, what? Dance with me. He held out his hand, just like I had 6 months ago. I took it, and he pulled me into his arms as the band started playing a slow song. We swayed together, and I felt like I'd come full circle. Do you remember what I said that night? Daniel murmured against my hair. When you asked why I came to the fundraiser, you said something told you that you needed to be here. I said I was supposed to be here to meet you. He pulled back slightly to look at me, and I was right. Emma, meeting you, asking you to dance, falling in love with you, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Daniel, wait, let me finish. He stopped dancing and took both my hands. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you and gave you every reason not to trust me. But you took a chance on me anyway. You let me earn back your trust. And you loved me even when I didn't deserve it. He dropped to one knee, and my heart stopped. Emma Collins, you make me want to be a better man. Not because of what I have, but because of who I am when I'm with you. You see me, really see me, and somehow you love me anyway. His voice cracked with emotion. Will you marry me? He pulled out a ring, a simple, elegant band with a single stone that caught the light from the string lamps above us. It was beautiful without being ostentatious. Perfect. It's from a local jeweler. He added quickly, reading my expression. Not some massive diamond that costs more than a house. I wanted it to be something that felt like us. Tears streamed down my face as I looked at him, at this man who'd broken my heart. and then painstakingly put it back together. At this man who'd shown me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto my finger and stood, lifting me up and spinning me round as I laughed through my tears. The band played on, and we danced together in that empty community center, right where our story had begun. I love you, Emmer. I love you too, Daniel. So much. Thank you for asking me to dance that night. I pulled back and smiled up at him. Thank you for saying yes. A year later, I stood in front of my own small design studio, Collins Creative, and felt a sense of pride I'd never experienced before. The studio wasn't much, a small space in a converted warehouse that I shared with 2 other freelancers, but it was mine. Well, partly mine. Daniel had co-signed the lease when I couldn't qualify on my own, but I was paying my share. We'd found our compromise, our way of letting him support my dreams without making me feel like I was being taken care of. My phone buzzed with a text from him. How's day 1 going? I smiled and typed back, terrifying, exciting, perfect. Daniel, so proud of you. Dinner tonight to celebrate? Mickey's. Me? Where else? I looked around my studio, at the desk I'd assembled myself, at the portfolio pieces on the wall, at the future I was building brick by brick. Then I looked down at the wedding ring on my finger, simple and perfect, just like the man who'd given it to me. Our story hadn't been easy. It hadn't been a fairy tale where everything worked out perfectly from the start. We'd made mistakes, hurt each other, had to learn and grow and fight for what we wanted. But in the end, we'd chosen each other. Again and again, we chose each other, and that, I'd learned, was what real love looked like. And that's how a single dance changed everything, how a moment of courage led me to the love of my life, even though the path to get there was anything but straight. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to know. Drop in the comments below. Did you see the twist coming? What was your favorite moment? I love reading your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video if you believe in second chances and love that's worth fighting for. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss our next heartwarming love tale. Because everyone deserves a story that reminds them that love, real, messy, imperfect love, is worth every risk. Share this with someone who needs to believe that the right person is worth taking a chance on. Even when it's scary. Thank you for watching. And remember, the best love stories aren't about perfection. They're about 2 imperfect people who choose each other again and again, no matter what obstacles stand in their way. Sometimes all it takes is one dance to change your life. So be brave. Ask that stranger to dance. Take that chance. You never know where it might lead. See you in the next story.